another man. It was silence. Not the peaceful kind. No, this was a hollow kind that fills a house, even when two people are standing in the same room. Melissa Carter used to narrate her life. Every thought, every frustration, every plan. Then one year, she stopped explaining herself. I told myself it was stress. She told me it was work. She started leaving earlier, coming home later. Phone always face down. Notifications silenced. When I asked simple questions, her answers came fast and flat, like she practiced them in the car before walking in. I'm Daniel Wright. I build systems for a living. I noticed patterns. And Melissa's routine had changed in ways that didn't add up. She still kissed me goodbye, still said my name, still laughed at dinner. But desire has weight, and hers had shifted somewhere else. At night, she'd scroll endlessly, thumb moving too fast to be casual. Sometimes she'd smile at the screen, then catch herself and lock it immediately. When I reached for her, she'd sigh, quietly annoyed, like intimacy had become an obligation. I didn't accuse her. Men who accuse too early lose the truth forever. Instead, I watched. I noticed how she suddenly cared about clothes she never wore for me. How she started using a new perfume. Light, expensive, unfamiliar. How she claimed she was meeting coworkers, yet came home energized instead of exhausted. That's when I found the second phone, hidden in the glove compartment of her car. No case. No photos of us. Just one name pinned to the top of the messages. Ryan Collins. I didn't read everything. I didn't need to. Short sentences. Inside jokes. Familiarity. Plans disguised as errands. And one line that stayed burned into my mind. I hate lying to him, but I can't stop seeing you. I didn't confront her. I did something better. I started preparing. I hired a private investigator, not because I wanted proof, but because I wanted timing. Every meeting, every hotel lobby, every lie cross-checked with her calendar. And then something unexpected happened. The investigator sent me a message I wasn't prepared for. Ryan Collins is married. Wife's name, Lena Parker. That changed everything. I reached out to Lena carefully. No accusations. No drama. Just facts, dates, and screenshots. I expected anger. What I got instead was clarity. She called me the next morning. Calm. Focused. Almost relieved. So, she said, we've both been living with strangers. That was the moment revenge stopped being emotional and became strategic. We didn't cry together. We didn't rant. We planned. Lena told me Ryan had been gaslighting her for months, calling her paranoid, jealous, unstable, promising he'd leave soon, promising everything except honesty. Melissa had done the same to me, so we decided to give them one last performance. Not a fight, not a scene, a mirror. And that's how I ended up at that restaurant. Not on a date, on a closing chapter. Melissa didn't come home that night until almost midnight. I heard the garage door before I heard her keys. She moved carefully, like someone sneaking into a house they no longer owned. I stayed on the couch, lights dim, TV muted, not hiding, not waiting, just present. She froze when she saw me. You're still up? She asked, forcing a casual tone that didn't belong to her anymore. Couldn't sleep, I said. She nodded too quickly. Long day. That was the lie she'd chosen tonight. I watched her walk past me, perfume trailing behind her like a confession she didn't realize she was wearing. For the first time in months, I felt nothing. No anger. No hurt. Just distance. That's when I knew I was ready. The next morning, I told her I had a dinner reservation the following week. She didn't ask where. She didn't ask with whom. That alone said everything. Instead, she smiled, a tight, suspicious smile, and said, "Oh, that's new. Work thing." I replied easily. Client insisted. She pretended not to care. But over the next few days, I noticed a shift. She started checking my location more often, asking subtle questions, watching my phone when it buzzed. She thought she was being smart. She didn't know she was already late. Lena and I met twice before the dinner. Once for coffee, once to go over details. She was nothing like the woman I'd imagined when I first heard her name. No bitterness, no desperation. Just someone who'd already mourned her marriage quietly and was done being lied to. They think we're weak, she said during our second meeting, because we stayed calm. I nodded. Let's show them what calm really looks like. The restaurant was Lena's suggestion. Neutral ground. Public but controlled. No shouting without consequences. No lies without witnesses. We arrived early. sat at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. Lena ordered sparkling water. I ordered nothing yet. You nervous? I asked. She smiled faintly. I was. A month ago. Not anymore. That's when my phone buzzed. Melissa, where are you tonight? I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, she walked in. She looked sharp, too sharp. Hair styled. Makeup done with intention, not habit. This wasn't coincidence. She hadn't stumbled into me. She followed. Her eyes found me instantly. She didn't hesitate. She marched over like someone rehearsing a victory speech in her head. So, she said loudly, stopping at our table. This is what you've been busy with. A few heads turned. Lena didn't. I leaned back slightly, giving Melissa space to perform. You didn't think I'd find out. Melissa continued, arms crossed, eyes flicking between me and Lena. You think you can humiliate me like this? Lena finally looked up. Her gaze wasn't confrontational. It was curious. Studying. Humiliate you? Lena asked gently. Melissa scoffed. Don't play innocent. I know exactly what this is. I smiled, not smug. Just enough. Do you? I asked. Melissa pointed at Lena. Who is she, Daniel? Someone from work. Someone you picked up while pretending to be the perfect husband. Lena set her glass down carefully. No, she said calmly. I'm not someone he picked up. Melissa laughed. Of course you'd say that. Lena met her eyes fully now. I'm Lena Parker, she said. I've been married to Ryan Collins for 11 years. The name landed like dropped glass. Melissa's face changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just a flicker, a hesitation, like her brain was suddenly missing a step it expected to land on. I don't know what you're talking about, Melissa said quickly. Lena nodded. That's okay. He said the same thing when I showed him the messages. Silence stretched. I watched Melissa's hands tighten into fists. This is insane, she snapped. Daniel, say something. I did. She knows, I said. Everything. Melissa turned to me sharply. Knows what? I leaned forward just enough to make sure only she could hear. She knows about the lunches that ran late. The hotel downtown you called a conference venue. The phone you keep hidden in your car. Her mouth opened. Closed. Lena continued, voice steady. Ryan told me you were just a colleague. Then he told me you were nothing serious. Then he told me you were temporary. Melissa shook her head. You're lying. Lena reached into her purse and placed her phone on the table. Screen facing up. A photo appeared, Melissa and Ryan, walking out of a building together. Close enough that there was no confusion. Another swipe. A message thread. Melissa's name saved with a heart emoji. Melissa's breathing changed. Faster. Shallow. This is a setup, she said weakly. Daniel, you planned this. Yes, I said calmly. I did. Her eyes filled with something like panic. You brought me here to embarrass me, she whispered. No, Lena said softly. You embarrassed yourself. We just stopped covering for you. Melissa's voice cracked. You had no right. I stood then, not to intimidate her, but to end it. I had every right, I said. I just chose patience instead of rage. People were watching now. Phones were still down, but attention was sharp. Melissa looked around, suddenly aware of the room. This isn't over, she said, voice shaking. You think you've won? I picked up my jacket. This was never about winning, I replied. It was about truth. Lena stood beside me. And now, she added, you get to face it. Melissa backed away slowly, eyes darting between us, dignity unraveling by the second. She turned and rushed out of the restaurant. The door closed behind her. Lena exhaled. That, she said quietly, was just the beginning. I nodded. Melissa thought the confrontation was the end. She had no idea what came next. Melissa didn't come home that night. That alone told me she was spiraling. I'd known her long enough to recognize the pattern. When she felt cornered, she disappeared. Physically first, emotionally long before that. In the early years of our marriage, her disappearances had been about space. Now, they were about escape. I slept anyway, not because I didn't care, but because closure had finally replaced anxiety. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Long paragraphs, short accusations, apologies tangled with blame. She swung wildly between remorse and rage, like someone grabbing at anything solid while sinking. You humiliated me. How could you do this to us? You planned it with her. You didn't have to destroy me like that. I didn't respond. Lena and I agreed on silence. No arguments. No bubble back and forth. Let the truth echo without interruption. Ryan, on the other hand, wasn't quiet. He called me 3 times before noon, left 2 voicemails that started angry and ended pleading. He texted Lena apologies he'd clearly rehearsed in front of a mirror. Promises. Excuses. The same tired script cheaters always reach for when the curtain drops. Lena forwarded them to me with a single message. He's unraveling. Good. That afternoon, Melissa finally came home. Her eyes were red, makeup smudged. The confidence she wore like armor was gone, replaced by raw desperation. We need to talk, she said. I nodded. We do. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten hundreds of quiet dinners pretending everything was fine. Now there was nothing left to pretend. You blindsided me, she said. You made me look insane. No, I replied calmly. I stopped protecting your image. She flinched. You teamed up with her, she continued. You turned this into some kind of performance. It wasn't a performance, I said. It was accountability. She laughed bitterly. You're enjoying this. I shook my head. I'm finishing it. That's when I slid the folder across the table. She stared at it, confused, then opened it. Her face drained of color as she read. Divorce filings, financial statements, documentation of joint assets, and one specific page highlighted in yellow. What is this? She whispered. A timeline, I said. Everything I discovered. Dates, messages, receipts. Her hands trembled. You've been planning this for weeks. Yes. And you stayed? She asked, voice breaking. You kissed me goodbye every morning knowing all this. I stayed because I needed clarity, I replied, and because I wanted to leave clean. She pushed the folder away. This is cruel. I leaned forward. Cruel is making someone question their reality while you live a second life. Silence swallowed the room. I made a mistake, she said finally. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stood up slowly. It always goes this far, I said. You just never thought you'd be the one exposed. She looked up at me, tears streaming now. What do you want? I want my name cleared, I said, and I want distance. That night, Melissa packed a bag. She didn't ask where I was going. She didn't beg me to stay. The fight was gone. All that remained was regret, and regret doesn't rebuild trust. Lena and I stayed in contact, but not in the way people assume. There was no romance, no late-night calls filled with longing. What bound us wasn't attraction, it was understanding. 2 people who'd seen the same illusion from opposite sides. Ryan, meanwhile, was desperate to fix his image. He tried to spin the story at work, framing himself as the victim of miscommunication. That lasted exactly 2 days. The investigator's report went public, quietly, legally, and precisely where it needed to. HR didn't argue with documentation. Neither did his wife's lawyer. By the end of the week, Ryan was suspended pending review. Melissa didn't know that yet. She found out the hard way. She showed up at my office unannounced, eyes wild. You destroyed his career, she accused. No, I replied evenly. He did that himself. She shook her head. You wanted revenge. You wanted to ruin us. I met her gaze. I wanted truth. Consequences followed. Her voice dropped. You could have stopped it. So could you, I said. That was the moment something in her cracked. She realized this wasn't a fight she could win with tears or anger. She'd lost control, and control had always been her leverage. I don't even recognize you anymore, she whispered. I recognized myself for the first time in months. I answered. She left without another word. That evening, Lena called me. Ryan moved out, she said quietly. I exhaled. I'm sorry. I'm not, she replied. I finally slept. We talked for a long time. Not about them. About what came next. Healing isn't dramatic. It's slow, uncomfortable, honest. But revenge? Revenge had already done its job, and the final step was still coming. The house felt different once Melissa was gone. Not quieter, lighter. I didn't realize how much tension had been living in the walls until it left with her suitcase. Every room felt like it could finally breathe. For the first time in months, I wasn't bracing myself for the sound of her car in the driveway or the forced conversations that followed. Peace arrived quietly. Melissa tried one last time to regain control a week later. She sent me a long message, carefully written, emotional without being apologetic. She said she'd been confused, said she felt invisible in our marriage, said Ryan had made her feel seen. I read it once, then I deleted it. Because being seen doesn't justify betrayal, and confusion doesn't excuse deception. The divorce process moved faster than she expected. That was intentional. I'd already separated our finances before the confrontation. Nothing illegal, nothing hidden, just preparation. When she realized the joint accounts were frozen pending settlement, panic set in. She called me late one night. "You're cutting me off," she said accusingly. "I'm setting boundaries," I replied. "That money is ours." I said calmly, "before you made choices that changed everything." Silence. "You planned this," she whispered. "Yes," I said again. "So neither of us would have to destroy the other to move on." She hung up. A few days later, she tried a different approach. She showed up at Lena's house. Lena told me later that she'd watched Melissa sit in her car for almost 10 minutes before getting out. When she finally knocked, her confidence was gone. "I just want to talk," Melissa said. Lena crossed her arms. "We already have." Melissa's voice shook. "You took everything from me." Lena opened the door wider, eyes steady. "No, I took my life back. Big difference." Melissa left without another word. Ryan's fall was quieter but heavier. The company finalized its investigation. He was asked to resign, officially mutual, unofficially final. His reputation took the hit cheaters fear most, the quiet kind. No scandal headlines, just doors that stopped opening. That was the part one never celebrated. Because revenge wasn't about watching someone burn. It was about stepping out of fire. I ran into Melissa one last time, unexpectedly, outside a coffee shop near my office. She looked smaller somehow, less polished, real. She hesitated when she saw me. "Daniel," she said softly. "Melissa." She looked like she wanted to say something rehearsed, then thought better of it. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she admitted. "I thought you'd fight for me." I met her eyes. "I did," I said. "For years." Quietly. She nodded slowly. "I know that now." We stood there, two people who once shared everything and now shared nothing but memory. "I hope you find what you were looking for," she said. "I already did," I replied. "It just wasn't where I thought it would be." She walked away. And that was it. Lena and I stayed in touch, but our lives moved in different directions. What we shared wasn't meant to turn into something else. It was meant to end something broken. Months later, I sat alone in my apartment, watching the city lights flicker through the window. No noise, no tension, just space. I realized something then. The calm woman at that restaurant wasn't just Lena. It was me. I'd learned to sit with discomfort, to let truth speak without yelling, to choose dignity over destruction. Melissa thought she walked into a confrontation that night. What she walked into was accountability. And I walked out with something far better than revenge. I walked out free.